Well, it's been a funny old week in the Premier League, hasn't it? We are back today to look ahead to match day 35 this weekend, including a huge trip for Luton Town to Wolverhampton Wanderers. We're edging towards Last Chance Saloon, and at Molineux on Saturday, a much better performance and result is now a necessity. During a week where apparently the only star performer for Luton was one Stuart Atwell, who delivered a result that all Luton fans apparently wanted. We are back today to talk about the actual football and not some crazy conspiracies. We're going to look ahead to all of the weekend's Premier League action, give our score predictions as well. I am having to record this on Wednesday due to work commitments and the schedule of all the other competitions, so I can't actually factor in Wolves' game against Bournemouth on Wednesday night, but we're going to look at the Luton side of things and Wolves this season generally, and of course the reverse fixture a long time ago now. So if you're looking forward to all of that, please do put a thumbs up on it. Get your score predictions for matchday 35 in the comments, and make sure you stick around for the rest of this week because we've got a big weekend in the Championship. We'll have predictions for that tomorrow, and the National League playoff semi-finals take place this weekend. I'm going to be at Bromley v Altrincham on Sunday, and I'll have the prediction preview for that on Friday. So all of those playlists in the eye above, make sure you stay up to date with them. But let's get back to the Premier League and matchday 35, because with the table as it is, and because Everton Forest apparently went the way we all wanted, now we have got a bit more work to do. Because with our game at home to Everton now not giving us the opportunity to catch them if we win all of our games, we're going to have to work a little bit harder and hope on some other results. We start away at Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday, a game thankfully I'm going to. Looking forward to it, but both of these teams in pretty poor form and actually with similar problems. Both only had 10 or 11 outfield players available for much of the last few weeks. For Wolves, it has been no senior strikers for much of the last month and a half. For Luton, as is well documented here, it's been a very few centre-halves available, 6 injured at a time at some point. We did, though, manage to name 3 against Brentford, which didn't help last weekend. The by far the worst performance of the season, and after our first defeat by more than 3 goals of the season at Manchester City, we followed it up with a stinker at home to Brentford. Just a really terrible game. That won a season that, to be fair, Luton often seem to have, and it is usually against Brentford. The 7-0 under Graham Jones. We obviously had the 3-1 earlier in the season, which was probably one of our poorest displays as well. And I always liken it to be a difficult game with Brentford because they're a side that do what Luton do, but better. They've been that style of play. They've got that hard-working club culture. They've got a brilliant manager, and they tore Luton apart. Brian and Buemo gave Alfie Doughty the worst day he's seen in the Premier League. And while it was a big bonus to have Osho and Lokonga back, and while that could be crucial for the final 4 games, the game of them getting up to speed was not particularly pretty, was it? There were a few positives from the game, which were Luke Berry scoring again, 2 Premier League goals for him, a fantastic effort. The first time Luke Berry has scored for Luton in a game that they have then gone on to lose, which is an unfortunate record, but given the fact it was late on and we were 5-0 down, I think that can be forgiven for him. Overall, though, Luton did have a stronger looking squad, but Brentford, both tactically starting with a back 4 and also in terms of the quality on the pitch, just tore Luton apart. It was one of those days, but there can't afford to be another one because with 4 games remaining, at a minimum Luton have got to win 3. I tend to think they're going to need 9 to 10 points, with the goal difference possibly 10. And you look at Nottingham Forest, who have got a favourable run in. You look at Everton, who now can't be caught, even if they lose the Merseyside derby, which I think we were all banking on, and against Manchester City as well. But now if we beat them at home, that's not going to be the possibility. So we're going to have to find a way to get the win at Wolves, and I'm not sure that's going to be the easiest job. In terms of style, we know Gary O'Neill's done a brilliant job. He's diligent tactically. But for Luton, it's a case of who can get on the pitch and who can keep fit. Because Reece Burke had a bit of a stinker, but he's had to play every game, something he doesn't normally do. And we've also had a few players that just look like they're starting to tire. Alfie Doughty, the last couple of games, has not had that influence going forward, has not had the energy going back. The early injury to Issa Kabore was a huge blow, because I actually tend to think that probably since the Forest game onwards, he's been the best defender at the club. And he's really come on leaps and bounds in recent weeks. So that's a big blow if he's not going to be available either. I don't think either Fred or Hashioka look quite as solid defensively, albeit still offer a little threat going forward. And it's that big miss of having 2 big strikers. Can Adebayo get back even on the bench before the end of the year, just so we can sling balls into the box late on? I don't know. The big concern is running out of time because Luton are going to have to find wins. And while earlier in the season you might have said, yeah, maybe nick a point away at Wolves, that ain't going to be good enough now. West Ham away is going to be a difficult game too. And then the two home games against Everton and Fulham are simply must win. The only benefit now potentially with Wolves is that that race for the top 7, because 8th isn't going to be enough now, does look to be long gone because of the injuries they've had up front recently. So Wolves are a side with not a lot to play for. And while they have been fairly solid defensively, take out that crazy cup tie, they've not conceded more than 2 in any of their last 5, including playing against Arsenal, away at Aston Villa, and at home to West Ham, where they were very unfortunate with VAR not to get a point. I think Wolves fans might have a few things to say about Forest comments in the week, given what they've had with VAR this year. But overall, they've had an excellent season, because if you remember back to the start of it, when people were talking about the 3 or 4 teams that might be able to help save Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United, Wolves were one of those talked about as a team that didn't have an awful lot going for it. And Gary O'Neill, despite some star departures in recent seasons and despite being down to the bare bones at times, has dragged this team through to not only a cup quarter final where they almost made the semis, but also a very comfortable season in the league. And if they had had a senior striker available the last couple of months, I think they might have done an awful lot better. They are, though, starting to see returns from injury. Cunha and Hwang Hee-chan have featured in the last week or two. Of course, I am recording this before Bournemouth, so we don't know what's going to happen after that one. But Wolves are always a solid proposition, and they're just a side that you never fear for in terms of danger taking a hammering. And that's a massive credit to Gary O'Neill, who's done an absolutely excellent job this year. 2 young English managers going head-to-head here that have done brilliantly at their respective clubs, both of whom are very articulate, are very diligent in coaching and tactically excellent. But for Luton, they're coming off probably their worst week of the season, and when starting to get players back and for such a big game, it was just a hammer blow on Saturday. It started pretty poorly, it got very bad in the second half. It's the first time this season we've sort of seen a Luton team give in or cave in at 2 or 3 down. And that's maybe the biggest concern and where the first little bit of discontent in the stadium this year came. Still a big reception for Rob Edwards at the end from a huge number of the fans. And they're going to be needed this weekend. It's going to be a massive occasion. It's going to be a really tight game for me. I went for Luton in the Brentford game with heart over head. I didn't really believe we were going to win it. And if I'm being honest with you, while I do think this game will be close and while I think Luton have got a chance, I'm not sure that winning this is going to be realistic. As much as I feel that Luton have to win, I'm going to sit on the fence with a 1-1 draw, which I think, based on Luton being without their top scorer still and with Wolves not having senior strikers fully fit, I think that's the best thing to go for. A number of players missing for both teams stretched to the limit, and for Luton it's just come at the wrong time. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but I'm hoping that Luton can find a way. Fingers crossed it'll be a good day out in Wolverhampton. Let's move on to the rest of matchday 35 though, and to do that, we need to have a look back to last weekend and see how we got on. It was a stinker for me because I thought that both Arsenal and Liverpool may slip up after disappointing weeks, but they've both responded really well. Arsenal have had an excellent week. They were magnificent against Chelsea and did the job against Wolves too. So just 2 points for me, a goal out with a Villa Bournemouth one, and Burnley's win at Sheffield United, more emphatic than I expected. And the West Ham result, I recorded it before the Leverkusen game, and I was almost harmed by it because they put in such a good effort that they were then gone at the weekend. I didn't get the draw I wanted in the Everton Forest game, but apparently that's not what I wanted because Forest fans have told me it's not. So you must be right. I must have wanted an Everton win. Let's look at who beat me in the score predictions though, and the simple answer is virtually everyone. Just ahead of me on 3 points are both Steve and Chris, 2 of our regulars who didn't have their best weekends, but enough to beat me. Kurt, Ed and Sam, Kieran and Reese all on 4. Reese the only one of those to get a perfect score. Kurt, I know you're a Wolves fan. I hope you have a bad weekend this one. Sorry, pal. Top of the tree, though, we've got 2 joint on 6, which from 7 games isn't bad. W&G and Mello, 2 of our regular players. You both win matchday 34. But let's move on to matchday 35 and see the predictions I've gone for. It's going to be a big weekend in the races at both ends of the table. Everton at home to Brentford, maybe not as big a game as it was. And of course, for Nottingham Forest, Manchester City coming to town. Can they do something spectacular to affect both the relegation and title race? This is what I've gone for overall, though. I've gone for Liverpool to win 3-1 at West Ham United, who just starting to dwindle away their season now, isn't it? Only 2 points behind Manchester United, and the way they're playing could still steal 7th, but I'm not convinced it's going to happen the way they're going at the moment. Fulham v Palace, I've gone for a 2-1 home win. I know Fulham's form is dropping, but at home, generally they've been very good against the sides outside the top 8, and I think they'll do so again here. Palace, done enough to get safe now, but it's all about next season for them. Manchester United v Burnley needs to be a home win from a Luton point of view. Burnley starting to kick and fight. They're really putting in a decent effort now. 1 defeat in the last 7. It's probably come just a little bit too late for them, unfortunately. And at Manchester United, it should be a home win. But God, that FA Cup tie. I said Coventry would give them a game. They gave them more than a game. They deserve to put them out. United, I've gone by 3-1, but who knows? The only reason I say that is because if Burnley go behind, they're going to have to come out. And that may play into United's hands the way they like to counter. Newcastle, Sheffield United, I can't see anything but a home win. Newcastle, back up to 6th, doing a great job with Eddie Howe. I'm a big fan of him. I'm a big fan of the way they're playing. So I'm going for a 3-0 win. Could be more if Sheffield United lie down. Wolves, Luton, you know I've gone for 1 goal apiece. I hate to say it, but I do think Everton will win at home to Brentford. Another reason I didn't want them to win last week. I've gone for 2-1 to the home side. Brentford, really important win against Luton. Probably just about does the job for them in terms of safety. Maybe one more needed, but getting a few players back now. And against Luton, it was tailor-made for them. Against Everton, pretty similar actually, so it could be a tight game. Villa v Chelsea's an interesting one. Cole Palmer missed the demolition job that Chelsea were on the end of in midweek. They lied down, they quit. They were bloody awful, I've got to be honest with you. We know they're not great in front of goal. They were brilliant in the FA Cup semi-final, but didn't have a scorer. Villa, we know, are excellent at home. They've got a European semi-final round the corner. And Chelsea generally do have success more against sides that come out and play against them, that press them high. They're good on the counter with space in behind. And I think it's going to be a high-scoring game as a result. I'm going for Villa 3, Chelsea 2. Bournemouth v Brighton. Brighton haven't been great second half of the year. Bournemouth really done well. Iriola's done an excellent job. And they have kept a couple of clean sheets in the last 6 weeks as well. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 home win there. And the big one on Sunday afternoon, can Arsenal win the North London derby at Spurs? City have got to go there in a few weeks. Arsenal have to win. They were emphatic in midweek. They were magnificent against Chelsea. But are they going to be able to produce again? They still gave up chances in the game in midweek, and Spurs will be aggressive and create against them. But I can see a couple of changes in the Arsenal team, maybe Martinelli for Trossard. And then when those counter-attacking opportunities come against a pretty fragile Spurs defence, I can see Arsenal taking advantage. I've gone for a 2-1 win for the Gunners. And then finally, Forest v Manchester City. I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's not going to be the game that saves Forest. It's not the game that's going to decide their season. They've got a couple of other big ones coming up after that. I think Manchester City win comfortably. I was going to go 2, but I'll chuck in a 3rd because I feel Forest will go and attack them. But that's not the game that's going to matter to them. All of the top 3 to win. Those are my predictions for this weekend. And Luton, unfortunately, to lose ground to Everton in a relegation race and making it a straight shootout between them and Forest, which is not ideal with the final fixtures Forest have got this season. That's just my prediction, though. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know yours for Matchday 35 in the comments below. Fingers crossed we get a reaction from Luton Town. There's not often 2 awful performances in a row for this side, but with a few players returning to fitness, is it just going to be too little too late? We'll find out the answer on Saturday, but as I mentioned, keep your eyes peeled for loads of other stuff on the podcast too. Subscribe and turn that notification bell on to make sure you don't miss a thing. We've got the Championship penultimate weekend predictions tomorrow. We've got the National League playoff semi-final preview on Friday. Sunday we'll have clips from one of those, Bromley v Altrincham. And next week it's all about the EFL playoffs and the final week of the Championship season. Still 3 more Premier League match days to come as well, including what may yet be a big game on Friday night between Luton Town and Everton. So a massive week to come. Make sure you stay up to date with all of it and come and get involved in the comments in all of them and give us your predictions for the fixtures. Thank you very much for watching as always. Good luck to Luton on Saturday. And after that, Wolves, you can go on and win your games. You've had an excellent season. We'll see you next time tomorrow to look ahead to a weekend in the Championship.